Corey Taylor. If you're listening, watching this podcast, the next time you fire another member from the classic lineup, uh, hire me. I've already got my mask ready. Our face reveal for the first time.
Oh, sorry. I thought
Oh,
it was
that's
just a
even
new.
better.
It was just a new era. I've got multiple to choose from.
This way, it's all about the podcast. People won't get caught up in our identities. They can just focus on the talking.
Exactly. Exactly. It's 100% about that.
That's my impersonation of clown. All right. Good to see you.
I feel like I need to name myself Chris Fenn's number because I have a big nose.
This was a very interesting undergoing for me. I'm sure I may have heard a song at some point, but I literally was completely 100% unfamiliar with the entire discography. I expected that a single here or there would have been like, oh, I know that. No. So this really was a 0 to 100 experience for me. It took a long time for me to really come around, to be honest with you. I think at this point, I would probably consider myself a fan. I enjoy the music, but I wasn't on their wavelength at first. I fell for the shock, scare. It made me feel uncomfortable. It wasn't my thing, which is interesting because so many of the bands, like you've said before, so many of the bands that I like were inspired by them. And so most of the music is right up my alley, but still I think I am such a sucker for the vibe and the imagery, and they just frighten me, and I'm not into that.
This band goes way back, and had a bunch of different iterations. So the percussionist Sean Crahan, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Clown. He started the band. This is kind of his art project. The first album, that's sort of an album and sort of a demo. They only did 1,000 copies. Had this dude named Anders as the vocalist. He sounded a lot more death metal-y, Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat. I thought based on the title and the album cover, it's gonna be the darkest, grimiest, industrial goth, you're about to get stabbed kind of album ever. No, it's like a third Pantera, a third kind of generic 90s death thrash metal, and then a third Red Hot Chili Peppers funk kind of thing going on. If that was all they did, they would have never gone outside of Iowa in terms of reach. And this would be some kind of thing that I would find on some kind of obscure metal blog spot or something. I'd download it and listen to it, oh, that's kind of interesting, and then I'd never listen to it again. They found this dude named Corey Taylor. From the moment he joined the band, you can tell this dude's charisma is on another level. And he's one of those guys you watch. It's kind of like watching the old footage of Green Day. You watch it and you're okay, these people are going places. And finally, with Ross Robinson as the producer, they released the self-titled Slipknot album in 1999. This comes out with a bang. So a lot of it is a lot of riffs and songs are kind of reworked from earlier stuff. Sick is the first track off Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat, but sped up. But it's like watching an alchemist turn lead into gold. I really like the first 6 tracks. I think a theme is going to be that Slipknot makes really good EPs and then just builds an album around them that's not as good. Almost every album would be better if it was just an EP. But the first 5, the first 5 real tracks, because the very first track is just a sample, are just incredible, just insane amounts of energy. You have the percussion is awesome. I mean, Joey Jordison, whenever he died, people were talking about how great of a drummer he was. I thought it was just kind of hyping him up because he had died. No, it really is just insane how much these incredibly frantic drum tracks add to everything. Wait and Bleed has this really cool kind of tribal melody thing going on that's, I guess, kind of the closest you get to more of a accessible pop track on there. Yeah, Surfacing. I love the breakdown in there. The do 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 do. And they do a thing in there. They do this a lot in their music. I watched a interview one time with Mick Thompson talking about this, and he talked about they got it from Rush, but they'll have the guitar will play something, and the drums will be playing something, and then the drums will go to a different pattern with the guitar playing the same kind of riff over that. And so you see that a lot. Really love those tracks. If that was it, this would be a perfect album. And then, we get the Tattered and Torn, which is this really weird, creepy, interlude thing. And then we have a bunch of tracks of, This Is All not as good as the first one and doesn't ever really kind of gel together. Liberate Prosthetics, those are all okay. I mean, I like them. There's a very few Slipknot songs I dislike, but I don't really feel the need to like go back to them a lot. I kind of like No Life and Diluted more. Only One sounds like we're like I could completely just skip that song. And Scissors is kind of a neat, dark, like brooding kind of thing. Lasts a long time and then ends with a dude vomiting. So keep it classy, Slipknot. And then I didn't care for Eeyore. Well, Eeyore, the bonus track, is okay. It's like, but a lot of this feels like it's all right as part of the album. But if we just took everything past Spit It Out and maybe just kept Scissors at the end and like made this an EP, it'd be much better. But again, I think this is really they really come out with a bang. It feels like they spent all their time finding their style on like all those like weird demos and stuff, and they just kind of immediately. I think this is like the most like confident like debut album that I've seen so far in this YouTube endeavor.
That's a really interesting way to put that. I hadn't thought about it from that sense, how confident it hits the ground running for being, especially now hearing it for the first time. I'm aware of how classic they are. So I'm like viewing it through that lens. But I also think it's amazing that they actually took off as a group of 9 guys. Like I've seen a couple of interviews, or sorry, just like read a couple snippets here and there, but talking about how much the label hated that. And I can imagine that. To this record, the debut, it's very aggressive. It's very angry. You got those Iowa boys who are just bored and hate everything. And I think that Ross does a great job capturing that raw energy, especially with the amount of texture and the amount of things they've got going on. As I mentioned in the intro, the first couple listens through, it did feel kind of like oppressively dark and heavy to me. Especially some of the albums. So I went and I sought out the first press because a couple of the songs are different. They had to get revoked, and I like listening to it like as it originally was intended. So you got the song Purity, which is preceded by Frail Limb Nursery, and those are very dark too. That's like a story about a girl, I think, being buried alive.
It was like a creepypasta that they thought was real.
Yes, that's the threat. So you got that added in, and at the back end, before Eeyore, I don't know if you knew about this, but in the first press, they have this like 3-minute, just sort of like the mic was on, and it's just them just chatting, and they had been showing Chris this like scat film, pornographic film,
I know that's
like his initiation.
That's what the
to
vomiting is at the end of Scissors. Those guys, like I said, like disgusting stuff, like not things I want to know about.
But that aside, I actually feel like the more I listen to it too, the album is very consistent and solid. Like, I think that 60 minutes is too long for an album, so that's my complaint against all 7 albums. Other than that, like I don't know exactly what I would cut. Maybe if I was more familiar with it, I have a few that stood up. I've got like Sick, Wait and Bleed, Surfacing, Spit It Out, Purity, Diluted, Only One. All those stood out to me. Scissors is great too. Really no weak songs I wrote. A lot of songs are really built off of these unique elements. Songs like Prosthetics, where it's like, I don't really know what that is at the beginning, but it sets the whole song off. It sets it apart from the contemporaries. I guess when you have 9 guys in the band, you better have some interesting sounds. Having both a DJ and a sampler kind of help there. Would love to have a copy of really any of their albums with just isolated tracks.
They can, at least for Volume 3, they have the stems online.
Cool.
I know this because I've sampled Slipknot several times. Shameless plug here, but my album Christianity Destroys Minds and Reaps Souls actually has quite a few Slipknot references, both some samples and just some little like nods to lyrics here and there.
Just very percussive music. There's like a nice rhythmic density that stands out that makes the music really linger for me. It lends itself very easily. You're like always headbang. You're always stopping your foot there. Feels tribal. You mentioned tribal too. I had that same feeling. And that's kind of what I got. I think it's a really good album that after I became desensitized to it, it's a classic for me.
For me, at least, even with like the Slipknot tracks that I don't like, they tend to be weak, but it's like weak by Slipknot standard. And then just as far as the impression of the album, like these dudes definitely had issues, especially like Scissors, Eeyore. I get the feeling this is a dude who legit like hates everybody and hates himself, and it really is uncomfortable, especially even more so as we transition on to Iowa. Yeah, exactly. So this is a tough one for me. It's grown on me as far as how it holds together as an album. But it feels like there's a couple of problems with it. The first part is it starts out with 3 really good songs and then just repeats those songs with different titles until you get to the last track. The songs all sound very, very samey, and it's like a non-stop barrage of "I hate you," "I'm gonna kill you," "I'm gonna punch you in the face," and it's like I feel like listening to like one or two songs like that, like kind of on a singles basis, kind of fits because it's like okay, here we're having kind of a range of emotions in life, and this is kind of what it's doing. Listening to all of them at once, especially like as you know an adult, not like a cringy teenager, it just feels like a downer. Like it puts you in a bad mood. And I'm not one of those like, oh, you listen to like the wrong kind of music, you're going to become a serial killer, like Satan's going to grab your soul or something. But it's just like I don't want to like put myself in that place. Again, the first 3 or 4 tracks I really like. Disaster Piece, despite the super disgusting lyric at the beginning, like Corey, some things you should write down and then just like fold the paper away and throw it away. I still love the music in Disaster Piece. So like that breakdown is just is like probably like one of the best breakdowns ever made. One of my favorite. My Plague, where you get the interplay between the almost kind of peaceful, like spacey kind of vocals. It almost kind of reminds me of what's that band, Deftones. Yeah, Gently is kind of a neat kind of thing. Left Behind kind of gives me some like if Nirvana was like insanely heavy vibes, it would have been a really great EP. But as an album, it just keeps going on and on. But it is all super heavy. No more real nu metal kind of stuff. I mean, we have some kind of more chanted rhythmic vocals, but there's no rapping except on I think like I Am Hated. That's the one. Musically, an adrenaline rush at times, but lyrically, such a downer. It's hard for me to get into the whole thing.
I think this is their longest album. It clocks in at 66 minutes. It's much too long. Obviously, the title track does a lot of the weight there. The 15 minutes. That's the last song. But even still, I had the same notes as you. Fewer like unique things that stand out. The songs are longer. They have way too long songs as a general note. And so the record blends together a lot more. It's less scary, but it's much angrier. From the intro, I think it's like him like screaming, like getting cut off against a bunch of all the time. It's just like we're led into the psyche of a band that seems to be really hurting.
Oh, that intro is at least part of it that they spliced in. There's Sid Wilson like crying on the phone after he found out his grandfather died. So again, super classy move to include that on the album. But that gives you, they were all kind of going crazy. It feels cool
that it does let you into this really just dark, sad place. The guitars are very dense and they like don't let up, so it can feel kind of suffocating. I saw a live video from I think this time. I don't know their era super well, but I assume it was. And it's like the guitarist comes out and he's like written hate on the guitar, the fretboard, and so he's like pointing to it and yelling out, "Hey!" And I was like, that's how this album feels to me. It's like you are embodied that. But like you're saying, if you jumped into the record at a point, it's like, okay, this song's heavy, it's got the emotion, we're good. But 66 minutes straight is too much. Corey, I didn't mention this the first one, but is a very impressive vocalist. He's still really impressive here. The guitar work is a little more technical, I think. I don't know guitar work that well, but it stood out to me more when I was listening to it. Songs that stood out most: Disaster Piece, Left Behind. I feel like Left Behind's a little bit more melodic than the rest of the record, so I latch onto it immediately. I like Skin Ticket, and I really like Iowa. It's an atmospheric, epic piece.
Yeah.
Even though it's 15 minutes long.
So we get that, and we go forward 3 years. I'm not good at counting. And Corey blows his vocal cords out with not only screaming with bad technique, but also drugs and alcohol. And we get to Volume 3, the Subliminal Verses. Spoiler alert, this is not just my favorite Slipknot album, this is one of my favorite albums of all time. I think this is great, and it doesn't really sound like any of their other albums, which is kind of cool. All their albums are very recognizably Slipknot, but all of them, except for maybe the last two, are kind of similar to each other, but they all feel different. It kind of reminds me of Me Without You in that respect, where they never really change their style as much as like add to it or explore different sides of it to some degree. But I think this one is great. It's a lot more technical and kind of proggy than the previous one, but also a lot more poppy. So we have stuff like The Blister Exists. I love the fact that you get to the part where we start getting like the drum line bit, right? And you're expecting like ba 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 ba, and you're expecting okay, the breakdown is going to come in and the guitars are going to follow the drums, right? And they don't. The guitars do their own chugging that's like a counterpoint with the drums. So instead of like the drums syncing up with the guitars, they're like weaving in and out of each other. I think that one's good. Like 3-0, Opium of the People. Like Opium of the People and Welcome, it's like you get the people who are like Slipknot has no talent, and I'm like, okay, dude, like go and like actually try to play like Welcome or Opium of the People on the guitar. Like you can't just pick that up and immediately get it. But I think that's good. We finally have some like ballads that show off. Like Corey has a really good singing voice, so we got stuff like Circle. I really like Vermilion and Vermilion Part 2. I think that's really grown on me as one of my favorite bits. Because I feel like they actually complement each other really well. And so Vermilion Part 1, my interpretation is they're both kind of about like this woman that this guy has like this kind of unrealistic obsession with or kind of view of. In the first one, she's kind of like this monstrous kind of figure that's like consuming his life, and you got this, it's of course this multi-part epic, and it finally gets back to like the she is it at the end, kind of like he's driving her, she's driving him mad, and then we get a couple of other songs. You get to Vermilion Part 2, and that one feels like, to me, like the kind of the part where this dude kind of wakes up and like kind of realizes that like his obsession with this woman is kind of all been in his head, and that you know this scenario that he's kind of invented is not real. We've lyrically moved on from I hate everyone and everything, and we get some more kind of like hopeful stuff like Pulse of the Maggots or Before I Forget or Circles, where it's, you know, not all doom and gloom. The last 3 tracks have grown on me because we got Nameless, which is again another kind of big epic multi-part kind of song, and then it goes to Virus of Life, kind of sounds more like Iowa or Scissors, and then it gets to Danger, Keep Away, and then it's just like this kind of really sad, like, although I always get a kick out of like these like mournful keyboard parts because it's Craig Jones playing them with like all the nails in his mask, so I'm just imagining him like doing this like soulful piano, but he's got the creepy looking like pinhead type mask on. So I think this is a great front to back album. It really feels like they did their own thing here.
Yeah, like you, I really like this one. I thought that, yeah, obviously it immediately starts off on a different note. It's going to be a little bit more experimental without abandoning the heaviness. It's got that Rick Rubin polish. It's a cleaner, more dynamic sound, and it feels a lot more accessible, especially than Iowa. You got a couple songs led by acoustic guitar, and that stands out in their discography to this point. You touched on this too, but I really appreciated the lack of vulgarity, both in terms of just me as a listener, but also the fact that he literally just did it to prove that he could do it to the haters. I think that's such a fun thing. Be like, you guys think I swear too much? Fine. Look, I can do it without that. And then he, of course, immediately goes back to swearing so much. I Can Lose the Virus of Life. That one stood out to me as kind of like a little less exciting, but I love The Blister Exists, Duality, Circle, The Nameless, Danger, Keep Away, and Opium of the People is one of my favorite Slipknot tracks, the whole discography. I love that instrumental breakdown part, and I keep trying to figure out the timing of it, if it's in a different time signature, or if it's just like cutting off a beat, or if I'm just done.
That's another one that they recycled from like a pre-Corey or like maybe early Corey song called Coleslaw. It
was the first one that gave me goosebumps when I was listening to it, when they like all sync up and then on the downbeat. Yeah, very good. So I've got this in my number 2 slot. I still think the debut is just like so of its own thing that I hold it a little higher. But this one was very good for me.
On to All Hope Is Gone, which is how a lot of fans felt when they listened to this record. And it starts out really awesome with Gematria, the Killing Name, which is this like super like traditional metal kind of song. It goes on a little too long. I think they should have ended it after the first breakdown, but the breakdown is awesome. It's like super cool thrashy kind of thing. And then we got an alright song in Sulfur, but we've got like Corey singing a lot in the chorus now. What's up with that? And then we've got Psychosocial, which is kind of the big single from this. This one's all right. And we got Dead Memories, which is almost all singing. Okay, what's going on with that? What's happening with this record? Then we go to Vendetta. Vendetta is the point where you know this band is in decline because it's that shuffle beat. Every band, when they start to suck, they do the shuffle beat. Bum, ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. And the rest of the album is okay, with one exception. But a lot of this album feels mediocre. A lot of it feels like this should be a Stone Sour album. It's not heavy. It's not nearly as technical. A lot of it feels like it's ripping off Pantera, especially the second half, other than Snuff, which I think is a great song. The second half just feels very just bland. Kind of like this meeting should have been an email. This album should have been an EP, and it should have just been Gematria, Psychosocial, maybe This Cold Black, and Snuff. And that could have been it, and it would have been all right. So again, a lot of just songs that are just kind of mediocre, not terrible, but by the standards of Slipknot, and especially the first 3 albums, just kind of bland.
I said it felt a little bit more like the metal that I came up listening to, a lot more straightforward and kind of groovy. You got cleaner, more traditional song structures, a lot of like verses and choruses. Psychosocial and Dead Memories stood out to me as the most radio friendly to this point. Like you're saying, almost all clean singing. I could have heard it on like Sirius XM probably. The percussion seemed to be like less prominent. Writing is a lot more around just the drum, guitar, bass interplay, which again makes it feel, when you're listening to it, you're never thinking, or I wasn't at least, like this is bad, but it just was there. It was just bland. So I've got it in my 4 slot. It's fine, but it didn't match the earlier heights.
So, All Hope Is Gone, and then after that, all Paul Gray and Joey Jordison are gone. So, The Gray Chapter. This album, it kind of reminds me, not sound-wise, but concept-wise, I guess, of Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, in that Take Off Your Pants and Jacket sounded like Blink-182 trying to be Blink-182, and this album sounds like Slipknot trying to be Slipknot. I think partially because the last album was so poppy, and I don't think this is bad. I think that this is just forgettable, and the more I've listened to the discography, the more I actually kind of like All Hope Is Gone better, because at least it felt like it was trying to do something different. And this one just feels, a lot of it feels kind of very generic, not in the broader scheme of things, but within the Slipknot discography, this stuff just kind of feels like them trying too hard to be themselves. I think the standouts would be The Devil and I. That's really about it. Like, the only other song that sticks with me is Be Prepared for Hell, which is this interlude. Just because it creates this, like, I guess when I was, like, I've got it in my head lately, because I've tried to go back and listen to this album, give it a second chance. But it just gave me this image of, like, this dude, like, going on, like, this elevator, like, down into hell, and he's, like, closing his eyes because he knows, like, as soon as he, like, opens, he's going to realize he's, like, in hell and, like, burning forever. Which I don't know if I don't think that's quite theologically accurate, but it was a very vivid mental image. But the rest of it is like, it just feels kind of okay. Like Kill Pop is their like serial killer love song for this one. I don't need to hear She's Beautiful in a Slipknot song. That sounds corny when Corey's screaming it. Skeptic, which is about Paul Gray, is not great. And then Custer feels like them trying to go back and do an Iowa song where it's really fast and really angry, and we're mad at somebody and want to punch them in the face, but I don't think they quite pulled it off as well. If this album like disappeared from the world, other than The Devil and I and maybe Nomadic, I wouldn't really be that sad.
Well, I'll ask for your forgiveness then. I really like this.
Okay.
So to me, it felt like All Hope Is Gone in terms of the structure, but the songs are all better. I said pretty much every song rock.
Yeah.
The heavy stuff is heavy, the soft stuff is soft, the catchy stuff is catchy, the emotional stuff is emotional. So like I really like Skeptic. From what I'd read, I hadn't heard kind of the sadder things about maybe the relationships weren't as good, but it seemed like they really liked Paul, and for him to die felt, I was just with that. Choruses really stuck out to me as being really, I love a good chorus, I love a catchy chorus. So AOV, The Devil and I, Skeptic, Lech, I said great use of extra percussion in that beginning breakdown. You got them all. Nomadic, -1, and then Custer is one of my favorite Slipknot songs. So that's funny to hear you didn't like it as much. I think it's the band at its best because it's huge, it's heavy, and then you've got that weird industrial percussion with the and the SFX in the background that just kind of make it linger with you longer than a standard band's take on the same kind of song would. The drums I had a little bit more precise, so you can tell that Joey's gone and he's replaced with sort of like a robotic version of himself. Yeah, I have it in my number 1 slot, which I debated. I was going to put it underneath Slipknot, but I was like, you know what? I think listening through today, I just listened to all 7 albums today, so I'm in a very negative space. I was like, I think I'd rather throw on one of these songs and like sing along than the first album right now. So I just bumped it straight to the top.
And I don't want to overstate it. Like, I sound like I'm trashing the album, but again, this is a band like Sum 41 where it's like, this is still a good album. This still has good stuff. It's just like in the context of the rest of Slipknot, the other stuff to me like overshadowed this so much. But again, still a good album. Bad Slipknot is still better than like 99% of other metal bands. In my opinion, anyway. And then we have a long hiatus, or a fairly long kind of a hiatus of about 5 years. And then we get We're Not Your Kind. I think this along with Volume 3 is the other really good front to back album. This is one that I would not make into an EP. I'd maybe get rid of A Liar's Funeral.
Of course, I like that song.
I don't dislike it. Again, there's very few Slipknot songs I dislike, but that one's it's just not as good as the other ones. But I think this one is really good. So it starts out with this kind of neat like I don't know, electronic kind of intro, and then we get into Unsainted, and I kind of feel about this song kind of like what you said about the previous album. It's like it mixes like the kind of like the radio friendly chorus part, but with still all the heavy stuff. I get a kick out of when people are like, Slipknot, it's not heavy anymore, and I listen to something like this, and like this is heavier than 99% of all music ever made. Like maybe it's not as heavy as like Iowa, but only nothing is. Like it's still super heavy. So yeah, we got Unsainted. Corey channeling his inner Ludwig Feuerbach with the line, reaching out for the hand of God, but did you think you'd shake your own? Which I thought was a good lyric. But then he follows it up pretty quickly with, I think, what is one of the cringiest lyrics in Slipknot history, which is "Your Bibles don't work on me." And I'm sorry, man. It just sounds like something like Bart Simpson would say, or like I'm just imagining like a Bible Man villain. Your Bibles don't work on me. And then Bible Man pulls out like his KJV or something. Like it, I don't know. It's yeah. So that's his like anti-religion song. But I felt like that one, like comparing, like this one feels like it's about like kind of like some actual personal experience in his life, as opposed to something like the Heretic Anthem, which just felt like it was being like offensive for the sake of being offensive.
Sure, yeah.
I like Birth of the Cruel. Nero Forte is another really cool, like super heavy verses, super anthemic kind of chorus. Critical Darling, kind of going back to a little more of the kind of complicated stuff, maybe from around Volume 3. Orphan's cool. I like My Pain because it's got like this kind of like elevator music thing with this sort of dissonant marimba or xylophone kind of thing. It just makes me feel like I'm in kind of like a dream where it's like you're in a dream, but like kind of everything's a little bit off. It's not quite a nightmare, but it's not really like pleasant either. And then Solway Firth. I like the fact that they end this album with just like a super awesome and super heavy song. Like I don't always like it when heavy bands have like a ballad at the end of the album, because then it just feels like it ends on like a sad, wimpy note. And this song is just like super heavy, like tons of like metal riffs, anthemic, but like doesn't let up on the intensity. So I think this is a great front to back album, and I think it did a good job of keeping a lot of the heavy stuff. And kind of adding in some kind of neat interludes and kind of weird dreamlike kind of things going on.
I totally agree that it's a solid album. Similar production vibes to The Great Chapter, which makes sense because it's the same producer. We got Greg Fiddleman back. I hope that's how you say that. It's clearly a more artistic effort. It's probably the most artistic to their discography to this point, but they can still bring the heaviness. Songs like Unsainted Show, A Liar's Funeral, and Spiders were both songs that were standout for me. I like Orphan and I like My Pain. Final four songs, I initially said just take them all off, but I take that back because they're solid, but they're all over 6 minutes. And so I did feel like the momentum wanes for me. It's like that's too many 6-minute songs to end your record. You kind of gotta ebb and flow it. But that's Slipknot, man. Another 63-minute record. If you don't like them now, what are you doing? You know, like that's their thing. I have it in my 4 slot because it didn't reach the heights of Volume 3, but I'd still take, you know, this artistic endeavor and the heaviness here over the hatred of Iowa.
And so then we have the pandemic happens, and we get the end so far. So it starts out with this song Adderall. When I first heard this album, I legit thought that I had like left something on the Spotify queue and it was playing, and it wasn't Slipknot, because it starts out with just like this soulful kind of like pop thing. And I actually like this song. It's they do a really good job. I don't think I would like it as much if it were like in the middle of the album. But it's kind of neat as like a fake out. Corey's voice sounds like different. His voice always kind of sounds different from album to album, but he sounds like a completely different guy singing it, and does a really good job. And it's kind of like, I like the fact that they kind of just show up and like, you know what, we could do this other style of music if we really wanted to. We're just not going to. Although I get a kick out of just imagining them playing this, but they're all like still in their masks and stuff. But then it goes on to 2 of like the heaviest, most awesome songs. Dying Song, parenthetically Time to Sing, and Chapeltown Rag. I think these are awesome, especially like the fact that they feel a lot more like musically complex. Like we're going back to the complexity of Volume 3, but we're also still keeping the heaviness. Corey's voice sounds better than ever. Well, not better than ever, but it sounds the best he sounded since Iowa. Yen is cool because it's kind of like they're like serial killer death love ballad thing, but it still gets super heavy. Hive Mind and Warranty, like Hive Mind, like you could have put that on Iowa and people be like, they don't do stuff like Iowa anymore. It's like, oh please, like you put Hive Mind on Iowa, and like nobody would notice, other than the fact that the drums are a lot more precise now. I think Warranty is good. I think the back half suffers a bit because everything is a little more has a little more clean singing and is a little more just kind of slow. And again, we got like a 5 minute like track for finale. I think that is close to being a bad song just because it's like so repetitive and slow. I do like Decide a lot more. It has just really cool intro and just feels kind of like proggy and different.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to say about this one. I like you. I was like, this is a very interesting opener. Is this Slipknot? My wife, when I was playing it in the kitchen, because I told her I was going to play the Slipknot album, she was disappointed. And then she was like, oh, this isn't that bad. And then as soon as she said that, the second song started, and then she was like, this is why I didn't want it. It's a lot of cool artsy stuff throughout, but not really what I go to Slipknot for. I still think they're doing, like, it's done well. But just in terms of my journey through them, I would need to sit with this one and when I'm in a different space. So, like I said, not really bad. Just hasn't landed with me yet, but admittedly, this is the album I'm least familiar with. But I do agree with you that Corey doing this at almost 50 is very impressive. He's in his 50s now, but I think he would have been just like 48, 49 when he's recording this, and that's awesome. But I've got it in my 7 slot. Not bad, strong discography, but the bottom so far.
All right, so that concludes it. And again, not a whole lot of like extraneous stuff.
This has to be the first time that we've completely inverted our favorites.
Well, I think we had Iowa in the same spot.
Yeah, we had a couple Slipknots in the same spot.
Yeah.
But the fact that number 1 is the number 7, that's impressive.
Yeah, but I think it just speaks to, again, the strength of the discography of this band is like if you're open-minded and you're not one of the people that's just hung up on like the first 2 albums because they're a different style, like it really is hard to pick your favorite one because there's so much variation while still kind of sticking to the same kind of general style. 5 songs. I'm going to do mine differently and just pick like one song off a different album. I'll say off Slipknot, Eyeless. Volume 3, Subliminal Verses, I'm going to say Vermilion, Parts 1 and 2. Iowa, I'll say My Plague. Off of We Are Not Your Kind, I'm going to say Solway Firth. And off of The End So Far, I'm going to say Chapeltown Rag.
Custer, Opium of the People, Sick, Skeptic, and Left Behind. An eclectic mix there.
So, amazing.
Yeah, that one's got sticky stuff on it. It can't go on.
Yeah,
or over these
I should have gotten a COVID mask. So,
I thought about that too.
Sweet.
All right. Till next time, maggots. I think it's. Am I speaking the right language now?
Yeah.